Wow. Let me ask first a very interesting question. Do you really think we can predict the future? I have to. It's my job. I'm a car designer. I get to draw cars for a living. And every day I ask myself, is that really true? How crazy cool is this? They pay me to do it. It's something I'm extremely passionate about. I could probably tell you pretty accurately what kind of cars are going to be on the road in 2025. Slight problem. If I did, I'd probably lose my job. Not a good thing. So my pretty much daily job, passion, is to work at least 5 years to 10 years ahead of what's on the road today. So what you see on the road today is pretty ancient for me, from my point of view. And you'll notice I said I'm very passionate about design. It's not designing that I'm so passionate about, it's about design in general. I'm literally obsessed with anything to do with design. Why? Because I get to envision something in my mind, I get to think about it, then I can put it on paper. I have a talent for drawing. And then if I'm good at convincing other people, we get to actually build this car. This car becomes a 3D product in front of me. We get to look at it. If it goes further, it becomes an actual physical clay model that we take into a prototype stage. And then it becomes something I can actually stand back and feel like I'm the father, or it's something that's been born from inside. So that's a very, very special feeling. And then in this product, this car that I'm designing, comes out and hopefully really improves on what's been out there up to that date. It takes technology even further and efficiency even further than what we have in the world today. I make a lot of people happy. You have to buy these things, but at the same time, it is bringing a lot of happiness to people to own things like this, and it moves the world further on. So this little spark that I had in my mind that I can suddenly bring out and see it in front of me is a very, very special feeling. I'm sure that anybody who's had a child can have a very, very similar relate to that very similarly. So at this stage, if we look back when the first car was designed, it was way back. It was in the Neolithic era, actually, the Neolithic period of the Stone Age, 3000 BC. And I'm sure you all know about it. So we did start very basically. We had not a lot of resources, but it was the first car. Where did we go from here? We made a big jump. And in 1765, the first self-propelled vehicle was designed. Not very effective, but it did work. Steam-powered. We've come today to what is probably state-of-the-art technology. And we're looking at something that is actually hybrid-powered. This is exotic in materials, exotic in performance, it's exotic in price. But basically, there's nothing faster, nothing more technologically advanced than what you see here. Where do we go from here? We've reached pretty much what our limits of what we're capable of inventing, of thinking, of taking care of the world's resources and trying to make things practical and also desirable. And with cars, with trains, airplanes, SpaceX program, sort of extended ourselves three-dimensionally. We've gone vertically, we've gone horizontally. So where is the next step for our transportation needs? Is it this? I don't know. I mean, this is a flying car. It could be very cool. Can't imagine a city with about a few thousand of these flying in the air above. It could be very dangerous, but it's a possibility. Or is it this? Well, this, for me, is very exciting. This starts to think about the world's resources. We stay on the ground, is what I think transportation should do. But it starts pushing different buttons, different emotions. I think we have to always think about moving forward in terms of propulsion, materials, visibility, safety, communication, and all these things. And obviously, we're moving very fast. We're moving quickly into the future. It's coming before we know it. But we're going to be driving, or actually we're not going to be driving. We're going to have autonomous vehicles. We're going to have cars that can think for themselves, artificial intelligence. And my fear, being a designer, this, I'm very sorry to say for me, is ugh a word? I look at this product here and I see a rolling transparent refrigerator on 4 wheels. And for me, design is about making something desirable. You have to make it attractive. We all own things that we find attractive. I think you don't ever go out and buy a product that you find unattractive, but you just buy it anyways for its use. Today, all cars, our vehicles are perfect vehicles pretty much. They don't break down as often as they used to. They're very reliable. So what makes a difference? Obviously, design is probably the main deciding factor when you purchase a vehicle like this. So please, you guys are the future. Don't let something like this happen, please. I mean, I'm all for artificial intelligence and autonomous driving and things like that, but products have to be beautiful. They need the loving touch. They need hands-on from a designer, not from a machine. A lot of design nowadays, as we all know, is going towards computers and things like that, and you might see me as old school, but the best way to design something is by hand. You couldn't repeat, or Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, those guys couldn't repeat what they did back then with computers. It was all done by hand. It was a real passionate thing that they always did. I have a few sort of guidelines, amazing words that I see that I refer back to all the time that sort of inspire me, incredibly inspiring people in our history, of course, but I've always looked at a few people, select people that I've always thought drive me to have more creativity in my soul. And I won't have to say much about these slides because I'm sure you're going to look at them and understand them right away. They're amazing, the next few slides. So just read that and just let it soak in, because for me, it is absolutely mind-blowing what this guy is saying. And he's known more for his intelligence than anything else. So the fact that he puts creativity at such a high level for himself, I think shows you the importance of creativity. Probably more so than intelligence, because if we can imagine something, then we can figure out how to build it. But if we can't imagine it to begin with, how the heck are we going to build it in the first place? So logic will get you from A to B, and imagination will take you anywhere. How about this one? Anything today that we have today, 20 years ago, seemed impossible. Absolutely impossible. That's going to happen 20 years from now. Everything from today that we're thinking about impossibility, can't be done, in 20 years' time, they'll look at us like, well, they weren't very bright. We found ways to do it. So believe me, the impossible is possible. It's never impossible. Who said this? I purposely let it stay small on the screen. Who did it? But the most beautiful words we've heard probably in the last 15, 20 years. That's Steve Jobs. We all know who Steve Jobs is and what he's responsible for. Is our modern Einstein. This is what I sort of believe when I sit down and try to be creative. If I can be a little bit cheeky, so this is what I think. Realism has its limits. Creativity is infinite. It doesn't get any more real than that, any more true than that. So put yourself in a position where what you imagine is absolutely doable. I really believe that with all my heart. And you might be thinking, so how is he so creative? I don't know how to tell somebody to be creative. I think it's probably one of our innate genetic makeups that make us either be creative or not. But I can absolutely tell you what makes me feel, or what causes me to be sort of the person I am. I think differently. I'm the one with the weird ideas in our group. I'm the one that comes up and is not ashamed or not embarrassed to say something that makes me seem to be the odd one out. I never give up. I never give up because I think great things come from great refinement. So great ideas always need refinement. You're not going to hit it off, a home run or out of the park on the first hit. So you have to refine your ideas, obviously. So stay with it. Less is more. I hear this all the time. And it's very easy to design something or to make something and make it complex. But the hardest thing in the world is to make the complex simple. Be curious, be inquisitive. I'm probably the most curious person I know. I never believe anything that anybody tells me. I question everything, basically. If somebody says it can't be done or it's a naysayer, I automatically go into the why mode. Why is that so? I don't believe you. I think it is right, or something like that. Not to be contradictory, but because I need to be forceful in that way to make my designs come through. Brainstorm. I call it brain squeezing. Brainstorming is one way that we all speak about it, but brain squeezing for me is awesome. I think whenever I get a chance to brainstorm, it's this human friction that we develop when we're having brainstorm sessions that really sparks off the creativity, really makes you start to think about new things that you would normally not even approach, but you get two funny ideas and they turn into a fantastic idea. And so you need this brainstorming, brain squeezing session anytime you can actually get it going. It's like lighting a fire, getting the spark going and lighting the fire, and ideas start to flow. So brainstorming is a real good one for creativity. It's one of the best ones. And then letting yourself go. Now this one is very funny because I think it's probably one of the most painful ones, one of the most embarrassing ones, one of the most scary ones. Letting yourself go means singing the wrong note, saying the wrong thing. It means not being the one that fits in, the one who's saying that the thing that nobody really wants to hear. So letting yourself go, putting yourself into that area that we've often heard, which is outside of your comfort zone. Why am I showing you here a picture of an interior, of a gorgeous interior of a car? Obviously, it's very futuristic. And why, as a designer, and I'm not showing the outside of the car, the gorgeous exteriors. Whenever people ask me, are you a car designer? They always ask me about the outside of the car, rarely about the inside. It's because I think the whole future of car design, and a lot of other types of disciplines in design, but it all has to do with the inside of the car now, about time being a luxury. If time's a luxury, it means you need to use as much time as possible in any environment to your advantage. And if we start looking at the inside of the car as being the starting point for design, literally what we're going to be doing in the future is designing the car from inside outwards. So the car becomes sort of an extension of your daily life. I mean, the thing that's going to happen with these cars in the future is basically you're going to be interactive with the car. It's going to give you possibilities to communicate, to relax, to socialize. I'll get into that a little bit later, but it's going to be the way we move forward in car design. So everything that's happening today in the technological world is going to start happening on the inside of cars. It's going to be very interesting. It doesn't make our job obsolete as designers, but it opens up a whole new field of design, which is very, very exciting. I'm a designer. I draw pretty pictures. I make cars look absolutely stunning. The first car designers weren't even designers. They were engineers, as you see here. This is Carl Benz on the right side. He's designing the first car. This was actually produced with a petrol engine, very low powered, but it was still a petrol engine, in 1886. So officially, this is really the very first car. So we went through a big phase. Obviously, we did the 1910s, 1920s, 1930s. What happened then is they started to realize that cars had to actually have some kind of attractive look to them, because that could be the difference between all these companies starting to build cars. What makes a car sellable? Well, it's the look of the car. So what happened, we started getting artists involved, incredible artists. We've always had incredible artists throughout history. And they started putting their hands into designing the cars. And these guys were sculptors. They could care less also then about legislation. So if a car hit somebody and it killed them, well, tough luck, the pedestrian shouldn't have been there. But it was important that the cars made dramatic statements. So we moved into this period where artists became the designers of the car. And we didn't call them designers, we called them stylists. So this is what we started getting. It was all about the beauty of the car. These guys were artists developing rolling sculptures. These cars were absolutely stunning to look at. These were cars where stylists were involved, and it was a free-for-all. You could design anything you wanted to. It didn't matter what it weighed. It didn't matter, how much it cost. It was more of an expression of passion of design. And then the hard times hit. Not really the hard times, but the challenging times hit. That's when legislation kicked in, and we started having to think about, well, the Earth's environment and how much fuel the car uses, and was it visible to be able to see out of the car reasonably, or all these things. They started coming up with all kinds of legislation. They started making it very difficult to design beautiful cars. And we did go through a period in the 70s where cars were basically safety boxes. So now what we've done is we've become designers in the rightful sense, but I don't just design cars now. I actually have to know a lot about different aspects of engineering. So I'm pretty well educated in the sense of knowing what we can do with materials on the car, all the rules and regulations of making a car homologable for the road. And so I'm working all day long with engineers who are suspension experts, engine experts, sound experts, obviously aerodynamics, as we see here. And one of the most exciting things I love about what I do is because I'm studying art and science together, I get to mix in one of my biggest passions, if I could put that in another context, which is animals, nature. I absolutely adore nature. When I left Ferrari and Maserati, where I was I was design director, so it was a very responsible position, and I got the challenge to work at McLaren. Started to work at McLaren as design director. McLaren is not a brand new company, but they decided to open up a road car division. In case Formula One didn't do too well, at least we would keep the company going. And my first challenge was to come up with, how do you make a design language for a company that doesn't do road cars? So you should be able to take the badge off and say, I still recognize that car as a Mercedes-Benz or a Chevrolet or whatever. So many designers get their inspiration from things that, anywhere. Designers are inspired by everything. But they go to fashion shows, they go to furniture shows, they go check out architecture. The problem with that for me is that design, in that sense, fashion design, furniture design, it's all temporary. It only lasts for a little bit and then it becomes old. So it's not really what we call timeless. But what is timeless? Timeless is nature. Why? Because it lasts forever. If it wasn't at the top of its game, it would die off. So anything in nature is actually, designed to be absolutely top of the performance game. So my instinct or my feeling was, if I can incorporate what we call biomimicry into the design of cars, it makes sense. There's no fast, fat animal at the top of its list. So you get everything that's basically shrink-wrapped and minimalized and beautiful. There's so much beauty in nature that if you can apply those principles to cars, it's a little bit like what I'm showing here, but much more involved in terms of things and details that I could get into. But absolutely, this became our design language for McLaren. So I got to include a little bit of the science of biology, biomimicry as we call it, into the design language of the new McLaren. So very exciting. But what I'm trying to say now is that since we've gone from engineers to stylists to designers, the next generation, you guys, have to become what I'd like to call it visioneers. And that means you guys have to break down the goalposts. What's impossible has to become possible. And believe me, it is possible, like I said. But you have to set new heights. And it, believe me, is absolutely possible to do it. These cars have to become much more efficient than what we have today. You have to put a lot more into much more smaller areas. So for me, visioneering is probably the new design direction that we have to start looking at, and which opens up a lot of exciting possibilities. So what are some of these exciting professions? One, obviously, is materials. We're looking at materials that do shape shifting. We're looking at biosteels, materials and steels that you can actually grow. We're looking at metal foam. We're looking at graphene, which is super light materials. We're looking at one that John F. Kennedy mentioned, which is the first undeveloped metal ever, called unobtainium, very special metal. We still don't know what it is, but we're looking for it. And then we're looking for colors and things like sound that can actually influence the aesthetics of the car. In other words, why do we want a car that changes color? Because who wants the same color car for 5 years? Maybe your wife on Wednesday night is going to wear an orange dress. She wants the car to be orange. We can turn the car into orange. It's very possible. You just flick a switch inside the car. We've already developed systems that turn through a color spectrum, and you can just have the material illuminate. The material illuminates the color that you want. Of course, the only problem is if you hit somebody and that person reports that your car was blue, we still have to have a way to track that car and report back that it was actually blue when it hit the person. But we can do that. That's absolutely possible. Electronics, the interior of the car, like I said, that's going to be so exciting because when you're sitting in a driverless car where the car does the actual driving, what are you going to be doing inside the car? Well, obviously, you want to either communicate, you want to watch information on the screens. So the windscreen actually is going to become a screen, even the side glass. You could be making a trip from here to Manchester, and you might be passing Windsor or wherever, and you want information on Windsor Castle. The actual image appears on the screen, on the windscreen, and you can start to learn about things along the trip. So it makes it very, very much more entertainment-focused than the inside of the car. So communication becomes important. What absolutely happens inside the car, you can see that this one has transparent C-pillars, or A-pillars in the front, so you can actually get much more wider vision. Then we're going to have engineers or visionaries who discuss propulsion. And obviously, propulsion is important because we want to start using less world resources. And we're going to be looking at in-wheel motors for the cars. We're going to be looking at hydrogen power, because for me, I was mentioning earlier that for me, electric power is probably a stopgap formula because it still uses resources to do it. So we have to find something with absolutely zero necessity of the world's resources. I think things like, and please don't hold me to it and don't shoot me if I say it, but atomic power, nuclear power, because we do use it today in submarines. We just have to be able to contain it, make sure the car doesn't explode, and we'll be all right. So what is this going to allow us to do? It's going to allow us to open up the interior of the car. So all these little small motors, instead of these big, inefficient engines, I would say, today, are going to offer us much more interior space. What can we do with the space? Turn it into something that's even nicer than your own living room. So you can start to relax, you can start to socialize, you can work in an environment like this. It gives us a whole new interior design concept. We're looking at ergonomics, where you can actually get into the car much more efficiently. You can get out of the car, so we call it ingress-egress. But this opens up a whole new ballgame of interior design, which is not what we're doing today, but it is definitely what's coming at us in the very near future. So if I could leave you with three things: design your future, make it a world that you're absolutely excited and passionate about being able to live in. Dream big. No, dream huge. That's better. And then make it happen. Remember, persistence beats resistance. If anybody tells you you can't do it, keep going, and you'll find a way to do it. Famously, I've always heard that it's always better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So that initiation, that initiative to do something, if it backfires, just ask for forgiveness, but at least you've tried. Thank you.